Hi. Okay, we've had a little bit of a break, but we're back to some garden science. I've had a few questions about deficiencies. I've had some strange pictures of clearly unhappy plants with things going on and going wrong. Now, the first thing you're ever likely to notice when your plant has a nutrient deficiency is the leaves will change colour. So first of all, double check that you're not getting concerned about a variegated plant or a sport, which is a growth that has developed its own genetic mutation. So follow the growth back. If it's a large amount on one branch that has changed colour, either that branch has been damaged, worth checking, and it will need to be cut out, or it's a sport and you can keep it or not. The second thing that you are likely to notice is either the leaves are going yellow all over and bleaching, or they are going yellow in between the veins. We call this interveinal chlorosis. When it's the whole leaf, it's called chlorosis. We can see damage within plants at tips. We can see rolling, and sometimes leaves roll inwards and sometimes they roll outwards. And we can see the tips, the margins of the leaf and the tips are starting to collapse, and sometimes they can break and the tissue can become very damaged all around the outside and the leaf loses its shape. So what can we assume? Well, damage to your plants can be a few things. So we could be talking about a nutrient deficiency, and what's happening for many of the major elements that our plants rely on, they are mobile. So what you want to check first is, are the new leaves of the plant significantly different to the old leaves? If they're a significantly different colour and that's not part of their cultivation, always worth checking. If the old leaves are looking really bad and the new leaves are looking fine, you're probably missing out on a major element. And because it's mobile. If the new leaves are not developing and are stunted, but the old leaves look fine, then you're probably missing a minor nutrient. And we talk about major nutrients and minor nutrients, not because one is more important than the other, but because the major nutrients are required in much larger amounts than the minor nutrients. So that's why we tend to get NPK fertilizers, the nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. But it also covers calcium and sulfur and magnesium. So what do we do if we spot some damage? We have checked to make sure that this is actual deficiency. Then we need to check the soil around it. Nearly all, 99.9% of problems like these are not a nutrient deficiency within the soil. This is an absence of soil water. So the plant can't take up the minerals because there is no water for those minerals to be dissolved in. And as we know, plants absorb those nutrients through the water, not directly from the soil. So double check, do a little finger test. Have you got a damp flannel of soil around your plant? If not, start watering it. If it doesn't help, then what we might want to do is a damage check. Follow all of this. If we're looking at specific parts, as with a mutation or a sport, sorry spider, there you are, we will follow this all the way back to the main stem of the plant. If there is damage at some point along here, it might not be an uptake issue, it might be a transportation issue because of damage. If there is damage, cut it off and see if the problem was isolated to the damaged branch or if it's wider spread. So then we might need to get a bit more scientific. What we're looking to see is the pH of the soil. Certain elements become unavailable to plants at low pH and high pH, and those will range. There's no quick answer to this. You will need to start doing a little bit of research. If you do a pH test and you find out that actually your pH is pretty far from normal, it needs to be at least 2 points away from 6. So either pH 4, maybe 5, or pH 8 to 9. Those pHs and below or above will have a significant impact on the nutrient availability within your soil. Now, you may have recently changed or you may not. The area around the soil. So it could be that something has happened, you've added something, built something, taken something away from the soil, and it's just about the soil rebalancing. If you notice that the pH has changed, that is a whole different story. So we'll talk about that another day. But that will at least explain, if you cannot alter your pH or fix your pH in the short term, just take that plant out of the ground where it is and put it in a container for the time being if something significant has happened to change the pH of your soil. The final point, is it the final point or will there be more? So the penultimate point is, have you changed anything within the soft landscaping or hard landscaping that surrounds your plant in terms of physical effect? So if we look at something like this lovely Acer leaf. Now I have an Acer that used to be surrounded by quite tall conifers, which we had to take down. And unfortunately that means where it was a really beautiful specimen and still is a beautiful specimen, if we get periods of high winds and periods of really strong direct sun, neither of which the Acer is particularly a fan of. So the leaves scorch like this, and a camellia is similar. And my Acer is next to my camellia, and both of them are now in a bit of a wind tunnel where they weren't before. So I just have to tolerate this damage because I can't speed up the growth of the other plants around them. I know that they're healthy and I continue to feed them and look after them, but I'm not going to start cutting out damaged branches because this is just superficial damage. Okay. The last point is like this poor poppy. Okay. Now we understand that annuals will grow, flower, set seed and die. If your plants have set seed and then the foliage goes like this, don't worry, it's done its job and you can clear it out of the way, or if you're a bit of a wildlife gardener like me, just leave it and let something else grow over it and hide it for a bit so that the bugs can live in it. We have to remember that all plants have a lifespan, even trees. So something like silver birches, which we have a few of, you're really looking at, those aren't going to last longer than 70 to 80 years. Oaks, we accept, are going to be around for several hundred. But so it's worth remembering something like a perennial, even something like a penstemon that we think of as a long laster. They recommend, and certainly in fine gardens, they would replace those every 3 to 5 years because they just aren't designed to last forever. And that's why we need to take cuttings, otherwise gardens become incredibly expensive to maintain. So that could be the other thing. If you didn't deadhead and you were quite happy with your display of flowers and the life of your plant has come to a natural end, this is not a nutrient deficiency. Any problems, just drop me a picture and I will always try and help. The other thing I just wanted to quickly show you, so we've talked before about black spot, and my roses have black spot. A lot of fungal and bacterial infections will start with these kind of symptoms. You have a bullet hole effect, and so in the middle of the circle, that was necrotic tissue which is dying and it's now rotted away and it's become putrescent, and then it spreads out. So like you would expect a mold or an infection to spread outwards. Now the plant knows that this is a bad sign, and so it's starting to withdraw as much goodness back from the leaf as it can, and eventually this will fall because the plant will realize that this leaf is no longer efficient and could spread infection further. So plants are pretty clever. But again, this isn't damaging the overall health of the plant. If you've got a slight problem and you think, oh, maybe it's a deficiency in a garden and something's looking just a little bit chlorotic, a little bit yellow, don't worry too much. It could just be seasonal. If you're losing swathes of plants and you're surprised by the rate of which they're deteriorating, then it's worth doing a little bit of homework. But if I can help, let me know and have fun.